You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, 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 and welcome out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, a podcast and YouTube channel featuring two guys who talk about movies and television, horror, and science fiction genres specifically, influences that influence the movies, and then the eventual things that those movies themselves influenced. My name is David, and I'm here with my good friend Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hey, David, what's going on out there? Anything?
Oh, just everything. We're just welcoming everybody. Tim and I are doing our normal socially distance still of, hundreds of miles.
Yeah, funny that you should say that because no one out there probably knows that we have not seen each other since we started doing this show in person.
Oh, that's a great trivia thing. Yes, we have not seen each other in person since we started this podcast.
I think the last time I saw you was at a Halloween party circa 2003 or 4.
Possibly. It was years and years ago, decades ago.
That's the last time I was in Tennessee, was at the Western-themed Halloween party that John and David had.
Oh, wow. And I keep wanting to catch up when I'm in Georgia, but I'm only there so fleetingly in between trips and not any in the last year. So
actually, now that I think about it, I don't think you were at the Western themed one, but I know you were at the sci-fi one because I was at that one too.
Yeah.
I've got pictures with you and Barbara.
Because I was a Vulcan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was Kurt.
You were.
I was.
But if you are joining us for the first time, we want to say, hey, thanks, welcome. We really appreciate you finding us. We'd appreciate it even more if you would subscribe or like or check the little star box or give us a review or tell your friends about us. And if you are a returning guest, of course, thank you so much for watching us and listening to us on your podcast platform of choice. Tim, what's been going on in your genre week? Anything unique?
You're gonna love this one. I just know it.
Oh no, it's one of those.
I decided to do a drive-in double feature, and these are the two movies I did: Prophecy and The Incredible Melting Man.
Okay. And they're so well linked. I understand why you would pair them together.
Well, I have to say, Prophecy is what started this because Prophecy is a direct key to the movie that we're covering today. So I was like, I want to go revisit this movie. And The Melting Man it came to mind because I was watching it. I was like, this came out about the same time, I think, as Melting Man, or actually Melting Man came out in 77. Prophecy came out in 79. And I didn't think I ever saw The Melting Man. It was one of those movies where I was a kid. I'd see the commercial on TV and I was not old enough to go see it. And I never got to see it. And I don't recall it being on videotape. So I wasn't sure that I had ever seen it.
Okay.
Anyway, both movies, Prophecy in particular, have pedigrees. Prophecy has a pedigree similar to those Corman movies that we've discussed in past weeks, including The Raven. The Melting Man just has a makeup pedigree. I didn't know that Rick Baker did that makeup.
I knew he had done the makeup, but I've never seen that movie.
Oh, you haven't?
I have not.
It is so bad.
Oh, great.
The acting, I mean, it's so bad at points. It's almost as funny as Basket Case, especially, this one guy that keeps telling everybody who he is. I'm so-and-so. I'm so-and-so. It's like, how many times can you say that?
Okay.
But Rick Baker did the makeup. He felt it was beneath him a little bit because I think he was already working on stuff like Star Wars. He was uncredited on Star Wars and a couple of other major ones that came out the year before.
Mhm.
But Rob Bottin is also on this, as is Greg Canham, both huge makeup guys in the
Mhm.
future. So, and the makeup's great, but it is a ridiculous story about an astronaut that returns to Earth, but because he saw the sun through the rings of Saturn, he is now melting, and he's a monster, so he eats people.
To keep from melting, or
I
just in
guess.
general?
I think he's trying to keep his sustenance up
Oh,
before
okay.
he
Lots of
wastes
protein.
away.
Needs lots of protein. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a lot of logic in this movie, but I am happy to report that Jonathan Demme has a role in it.
Oh my gosh.
He actually has a part that has about 3 lines before he gets killed.
Great.
So we have that. That was The Incredible Melting Man. Before that, I watched Prophecy, which is the first eco terror movie that I can recall watching
I
as a kid.
vaguely remember seeing that in a drive-in.
Mhm.
So I think because it's proto-human creature thing, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's more like a bear.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like an Inside Out bear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great design, great pitch. Let's do that movie.
Well, let me tell you a
Inside
little
Out
bit
bear.
about this movie. This movie has got historical credit, even though it is quite terrible too. It's not as terrible as The Incredible Melting Man. They had a little bit more money, but I found out through research that this is the first movie Hollywood filmed in Vancouver.
Oh, very good. That's a great point.
I know this is the beginning of Hollywood North,
Yeah.
this movie. The pedigree, like I said, is off the charts, even though it's terrible. It was directed by John Frankenheimer.
Okay.
It was written by David Seltzer.
Wow.
And it starred Robert Farnsworth, former Mr.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Montgomery,
Quester.
Talia Shire,
Mm-hmm.
Armand Asante plays a Native American who's pissed that they're in there screwing up their land.
The reservation. Yeah.
Exactly. And honestly, they live in teepees and they're called Indians. It's not politically correct at all.
Do they say the res? Because
I don't
that
think
was
so.
Yeah. That was so bad.
And it also has, before the thing, Richard Dysart.
Oh, okay. Good
Yeah.
actor.
Yeah, it's got some great things going for it. Basically, Robert Farnsworth plays this doctor in the city that's tired of treating ghetto patients that have children getting bitten by rats. So he and his cello playing wife, Talia Shire, go up for a new gig up in Maine. And it turns out they have a cabin. All of a sudden they start seeing things like giant fish and
Inside Out bears.
rabid, what are they called? Rabid raccoons.
Rabid raccoons. Okay. Yeah.
And there's like, what's going on with nature? And it turns out Richard Dysart runs the big paper mill there, and that the trees are being soaked in a mercury type solution that helps to soften them. And that mercury is one of the reasons why the Native Americans are all upset, because they're having stillborns and mutated births. And it turned Talia Shire is pregnant, but she has not told Robert Farnsworth yet. And she's been eating the fish. Now they're worried about her baby. And meanwhile, they find the babies of this monster Inside Out bear thing. And they want to take them and show them to the press and expose the whole thing. Anyway, it's ridiculous. But I wanted to revisit it. It had been a while. Both movies came out in the 70s.
So would you classify it as a monster movie? Prophecy?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my week was some catch
And Frankenheimer doesn't know how. Sorry. I was just saying, Frankenheimer doesn't know how to do a horror movie. It's just basically monster jump out, monster jump out.
Here's your cue. Jump. Good.
Right.
Well, mine was a little bit of catch up, and then one thing that I wanted to talk to you about. But so I finally caught up on WandaVision, and
Oh,
wow, I'm still blown away by Marvel and what they are doing, and the way they seem to be so good at threading things through. I marvel at the marvelness of Marvel and the way they're doing their threads and setting up. It seems like there's a lot of Easter eggs in the series. There's lots of things in the series that are portents, I think, or threads for other things that are coming. So very impressed with it. I'm close to catching up on The Boys. So I'm about halfway through the second season, getting there. Still love it too, but boy, is it always so dark. It is just so dark.
Yeah, I finished both seasons.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to talk about it once I finish. I'm close. I think I'm 2 episodes away from the end.
I agree.
So,
And if we have time, we should probably start doing some bonus episodes of like this kind of coverage.
yeah, that would be
I
good.
think WandaVision would be a good one. Any of those Marvel ones that are coming out. And I think that The Boys would be a good one as well.
Oh, I definitely do. I think because it definitely has the makeup effects well done all the way through. Every time they do just some bizarre murder, I'm going, oh my God, they just literally beat that guy's face off. It's crazy. But great performances, great writing in both series. So that was good. And I guess my last little thing before we jump into this week's movie is I did watch The Wicked and the Dead. And you had mentioned it, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Did you mention it? I think you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3.
2 weeks.
Yeah. And you had compared it to Devil's Candy, which I was going to rent it and compare so I could do your thing and say, okay, which one was better. But I personally loved Wicked and the Dead. It scared the crap out of me. I loved it. I loved the mood.
Yeah.
I loved the jump scares. I loved the ending. That whole movie, I was going, oh my God, this is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. I really enjoyed it.
I think it has. I think it has great moments, but I just wanted more explanation for what was going on.
I thought, because I had that going into it because that's what you had mentioned was, it really doesn't explain. It really just kind of is a mood piece, and it sets it as a mood, which is good, but there's not a lot, in it. And the only one I could take was, and by the way, if you haven't seen this movie, you definitely stop right now and do not listen to the rest of this because it's a spoiler. But I think when the priest came and made his little thing about, you think the wolf waits for you to invite it in? You think the wolf does it? And that whole thing about that allegory of evil being a wolf that will just do what it does, and it will be mean, and it will devour, and all of that. I was going, okay, well, to me, that explains it. It's already there. They'll just be lucky to get away. And we saw how that ended. But
it came there, and it came
correct.
there since the kids went away.
No, it was there before, because remember, even before they arrived in the first scene, the chair moves, and the mom is outside, and all the stuff moves. All the what do they call it? The wind chimes that are all broken that they have around the Black Phillip and the boys.
Those are like little. It's kind of like The Walking Dead. They hang those bottles up in case a wolf or something tries to get in and kill the sheep.
Right.
It's like an alarm.
But it moves, but there's nothing there. And when she's out with all the goats in the first scene, and then when she's back in the kitchen, the chair moves and all that, and she turns around and looks at it. So it's already there. And then later on, they say it came there because it wants his soul.
Okay.
because he's dying.
I mean, the kids act like they don't know that it's there until they see what's going on. And the
And
mother
they
doesn't
don't.
want them to come there. So I think that it came after they grew up and went away.
Oh no, yes. Oh, definitely. It's been there since the kids have been gone.
So why
Correct.
did it come then?
It came there because he's dying. It came to get his soul.
Maybe. All right. I
No,
mean,
Tim,
I think they could have
it is
solved
real.
this. with a few-
I've watched it.
I think they could have solved it with a few lines in her dialogue. It'd been a
Could have.
real easy fix.
Yes, agreed.
I mean,
they could have.
They could have had bad crops one year, so she did something, and now it's happening.
Yes, easily. Or he did something, maybe, and that's one of the reasons why he got sick. Even, yeah, I could.
Yeah,
see
maybe
that.
he sold his soul. That would be even better.
It started.
Also, he sells his soul, and the devil comes to collect it.
Yeah, and I actually thought that might be it. They would find out something in the diary where he actually did invite it.
Right, that's my problem with it.
Yeah.
Why didn't they do that?
I loved it though. I loved the performance. I thought Mike, who we both, I know Mike Abbott. I worked with him before. He's really great. But I have to say, my only complaint about the movie was every time they show the goats, I could hear you saying Black Phillip every time.
Black Phillip. It's Black Phillip.
And it made me laugh. So anyway, that was my that was my my encounter with Wicked and the Dead, which I did really like. I do recommend it. I think it's a great horror movie, a modern horror movie.
Yeah, I would recommend it. It is a very good movie. It is solid as far as performances and mood.
God, yeah, and music works in it. Everything surprise, the script to me works. There are surprises and twists in it I did not see coming at all.
My favorite part is what happens to him when he gets home. That's the best part. I mean, that threw me for a loop.
Oh yeah, that one got me. That was a good twist. There was some good twists. There's some good stuff. But twisty, slithery strangeness. What are we talking about this week, Tim, in the podcast?
Well, that's a very nice segue. We are going back into eco horror land, not as far back as Prophecy, which was 1979. This one does go back to 2006. It is a little South Korean film called The Host. Well, let me tell you, let's just say a little bit about the movie. Basically, The Host is about a family that lives on the Han River, that they own like what would you call that? Like a snack stand, where they sell, snacks for a living. And at the beginning of the movie, there's a very familiar looking doctor type American who is actually, I can't think of his real name, but he played Herschel on The Walking Dead, for those
he did.
Caught that. And he Scott something. Anyway, he decides that whatever they're doing with this formaldehyde, that it'll just be easier to pour it down the drain. And his Asian assistant's like, no, this goes into the Han River. And he's like, oh, it's fine. That river's huge. It's not going to do anything. And all of a sudden, you see this table of all these bottles of formaldehyde that are going to get poured down the drain and into this river. So anyway, this mutant monster is born in the river and comes out and starts hunting people for dinner, I guess you would say. And the family that owns the snack plant, the snack shack, plays into the story of this monster, and I'll leave it at that. We'll get a little bit first we go. Had you seen this movie before?
I had not.
I had a feeling you had not, because it was a foreign film.
I'm trying to increase my appreciation of foreign films, as you know.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I had not seen this.
Okay. I think that I will go ahead and ask, because I have not seen it. But this is directed by the same guy that just won an Oscar for Parasite.
Correct.
And I was wondering if, when I talked to you about Parasite it's been several episodes back, you mentioned that you had trouble determining whether or not it was a horror movie or something else, like a different genre. And I was wondering if this movie did the same thing with you, because at times this movie plays like a comedy.
In places, yes. I think
Mhm.
I don't know if that is a Korean film staple. I don't know if that's really just him, Bong Joon Ho, or what. But there were times in this movie I felt the same way, where I was going, okay, why is this being played funny? Why is this being played for laughs?
Like when they were all
Because
on the floor and the guy's up there taking the pictures of them
yeah,
wallowing around in grief. I'm like, why are they doing this?
yeah, or the way they do certain scenes where it's just obviously that's an aside and that's a joke, or we literally spend 5.5 minutes watching them eat, and you're going, what? I'm not sure why this is here. But since he wrote and directed both of these films, the one he won the Oscar for and this one, it must be, it's either a convention of his or the media itself that I don't know. I don't agree with it. I agree. And I struggle with him because he also is known for doing Snowpiercer, the movie. And I think it is absolutely horrible. It was a terrible movie. And mostly just because the premise is so just crazy and ignorant. Um, because if you're not familiar with it, it takes place in the distant future, or not a distant future. It takes place in a not too distant future after a global apocalypse, climate change or whatever. And all of human civilization lives on a train that never stops, that just goes around the world over and over again.
It's got Tilda Swinton on it.
Correct. And each compartment of the car is a different cast of society. So it starts at the very back of the car with all of the, the worker types, and they slowly create a revolution going toward the engine. And I was going, okay, why is everybody recommending this movie and liking this movie? Because it's terrible. And they even turned it into a series that I think is getting a second season that he actually wrote like 10 episodes for. Bong Joon Ho, the director and writer of this, and I don't see why it would even get one episode, let alone 2 seasons. So that's just me.
Yeah, I watched Snowpiercer, and it's been a minute, but I wasn't that thrilled with it. I watched it just because it had Chris Evans and Tilda Swinton in it.
Right. And neither one of them is actually great in it or very good. And parts of it are
supposed
just really
to be like a class metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about how, it's that old Harlan Ellison sort of trope we even talked about a few months ago of taking, using the isolated people will develop their own societal caste system sort of thing. So if I'm isolated to this one train car and that's my only view of the world, then that's all I know. And I will go by whatever happens there. So like one's the kid's car, one's the elite hedonist car, one's, and I was just, no, it didn't work for, first of all, the train, what? A train going around the world all the time? Really? That's your metaphor?
Isn't it kind of steampunkish or something?
Pseudo, really? Not really. It could have been. I might have liked it then, but not really. No. And I guess, but okay. So that aside, the fact that I don't think he's really a good screenwriter. He might be for Korea, because according to my notes, this movie, The Host, became hugely popular in Korea.
They're one movie some time.
But the one thing going for him, especially in this movie, actually, I think even more so than Parasite, because he had more money for Parasite. But this movie has incredibly good lighting and cinematography. It's
I
just
think
so
it's
well
gorgeous.
filmed.
Yeah.
It is
There's,
gorgeous.
I mean, aside from some of the bad CGI, and it's not bad CGI, it's just obvious CGI.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's beautiful. There are moments or just framing that just blow me away when I watch the movie. And this is like
Mhm.
the third time I've seen it.
Gorgeous scenes. They're
Mhm.
great close-ups of character work and people and everything, and some good performances, I think, by the cast. It's just that there are times when the story or the situation makes no sense to me, so I'm not really getting the empathy I think I should be getting for these characters. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Um,
Before we go further, I'll go ahead and say that the family's youngest daughter is basically the family is a grandfather, his son, and his son's daughter. There is no, and then eventually the father's brother and sister come into play as well. So it's a grandfather, his three kids, and his grandchild. And his grandchild is kidnapped by this monster. They think she's
right.
dead. As a matter of fact, here's a picture. She gets caught by the monster in the tail, not by the mouth. It grabs her by the tail and takes her away.
Yes.
And it turns out this creature has this place under the sewers where he's keeping, I don't know, a secret food source.
Yeah.
Instead of just eating
it's
everybody in sight, he takes them back. Yeah.
his snack pantry. Yeah, in the sewers kind of
It's
thing.
his
Yeah.
snack shack.
Yeah, his snack shack. Yeah.
There you go. So, but like in that picture behind me, the CGI is great, but it's a little shiny, which makes it look a little fake to me. But man, it's a great monster.
I think to me, it only affected me really in the long shots. In the small shots, I thought it was great. And I found out Weta, the same guys that did Lord of the Rings,
Like that one.
did the effects for this. And
Who is that?
it's only in the long river shots essentially that I think that it looks really CGI. I think a lot of the close-ups and the eye and her big fight with it and everything, all that works really well for me. Definitely the first scene, and I think the major scene in this movie, is the first attack, because I even wrote it in as an anti-key, I guess, because it's like an anti-Jaws. Jaws is like set the precedent for let's keep hinting at the monster, but we don't show the monster till like halfway through. This one is like, nope, we're showing the whole thing from the very beginning. Here you go. And it's this long, incredible shot that has extras in it and everything, and the thing coming out of the water, chasing them, killing people, going back. It reverses course and the camera goes back the other way. It's a great scene.
Yeah, there's a little behind me of the father running and some people running at that as that thing. But this is the shot that I love, is when you see her. He thinks he has her hand and he looks and he's got the hand of another girl. And he turns around and he looks and sees his daughter, and that thing is right behind her coming up. And it just snatches her.
It's great.
Just beautifully done. Beautifully done.
I thought that was a great scene. I thought, even though there wasn't a lot going on and I didn't really care for some of the characters, I thought their initial search of the sewers was a great scene, just because of the way he did the lighting. And like with the flashlights just going down the tunnels was really dark and moody and really good.
What did you about the creature design?
What I like about it,
I said,
love
what
the
did
fact
you think about it?
I think I would have to say it's one of my more favorite creature designs, just because it was so mutated and weird and strange.
Right. And it's not like Godzilla where it's, as tall as a building. It's just this mutant thing that comes out of the river and starts eating people.
Yeah. And it's probably elephant size or a little bit bigger maybe, but huge long tail, 2 legs, I think, but other appendages that it uses, but none of them are like symmetrical, which is great. Its mouth is not symmetrical at all. It's semi-predatory, but
I
it
would say that too. It
opens.
opens in like two different directions. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminded the keys I had for that were Predator and the Demigorgon in Stranger Things. You know, that kind
Oh
of petal
yeah.
open mouth. But it's weird because then it has a tongue, but then it has some weird lips and has some vulva looking kind of. I mean, it was semi-erotic in place. It was weird,
Like it
but
looks
it
like a
definitely.
flower at times to me, but so did the Demogorgon in Stranger Things. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
it has an eye, or at least one eye, two eyes
it's a
maybe, and it
milky
looks.
looking eye. It looks like a
Sometimes it looks
milky
like a
fish
fish.
eye.
Yeah, it looks like a grouper or a fish or
Hmm.
something, you know. So I loved it. I thought it was a really cool design.
It's really strange though. It looks more fish-like, but it hangs under the bridge like a bat, and it can do those
Yeah.
weird flips that I was just like, what the fuck is this? This is crazy. The first time I saw it, I had read so much about it. I was like just jonesing to see it. And when I finally saw it, I was like, okay, now I know why people are excited about this movie.
Yeah, I
Because that
like the way
monster's awesome.
yeah, I like the way it moved under the bridge. You know, it would grab and then it would swing its tail, then it would swing its whole body with the tail and grab again. So it was like it was a monkey breaking through the woods, but with its tail and its arms.
Right, like monkey
Yeah.
bars. But it also, there's a good jump scare with that as well, where it just sweeps down and grabs somebody.
Oh
I can't
yeah.
remember who it is, but
There's some good jump scares. And I think my third and final scene, and then I want you to do yours, is actually the scene you have in the picture there, which is her confrontation with it at the end,
at the
where she
end,
is protecting the younger boy that she's with, and they're both down there, and the monster is asleep in the snack shack with them, and her decision to try to escape and save the boy, you know, come back for the boy, and that didn't work. And then both of them trying to get away, and you don't know if they do or not. And it's a great cut away at the end of that whole scene. Her face, the way she's lit, the way it looks, it's just really good. Good.
it is. She basically decides they have to get out of there. They're starving to death. Not to mention there's nobody left for it to eat. So they're next if they don't get out of that little hole they're hiding in the side. And I love, and this is one of the scenes I love, is when they tie this clothing together on an anchor like type thing and throw it up, and they've got it hanging, but it's too far up and they cannot reach it.
Mm-hmm.
So while it's sleeping, she just decides she's going to run as fast as she can up its back and grab that thing. And she does. And she makes it and she starts climbing up, but then all of a sudden she's not moving. And what happens is that it's wrapped around her and it's just holding. I was like, wow. I mean, that to me.
Yeah, it was great. And I love the fact that literally the way he even shot it, like looking up the creature's back and seeing its eye, and its eyes like looking at her going, no, you're not going anywhere. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was great. It was a good scene. What about you? Favorite scenes? You like that one? Anything else?
I like the initial chaos of, as you said, with the initial attack and the jock guy. When her father is kind of a, what would you call him? Kind of a loser.
Oh yeah.
And so he decides he's going to help this jock guy, and this jock guy, like, I can't remember what the first thing is they throw at it. It's like a tile. They pick up a big cement tile and sling it like a discus, and they hit the monster and it turns around or whatever. Then the jock guy pulls, or no, actually it's the father pulls this. It's like a sign, but it's got a cement base. So it's heavy, and he runs up and conks it. And anyway, the jock guy ends up getting, I thought, eaten, but then you find out later that he lost an arm or something because he's on the news. I love that, all that chaos with the monster and the people running around. That's probably one of my favorites. I also like that you can see it underwater from high.
Oh yeah, swimming. Yeah.
As far as cast, I don't have a lot, obviously, because it's Asian and I don't even really know a lot of their character names, much less their real names. But I would like to say that the woman that plays the sister, that's the archer, I love her. She played Sun back in Sense8,
Mm-hmm.
and she's great.
As soon as I saw her on the television, they were watching her do the Olympic trials and whatever, and I went, "Oh my God, that's Sue. That's Sun from
Right.
yeah."
Yeah, and she's awesome. Yeah, she's one of my favorite parts of that series, Sense8, which is a series I need to revisit. But other than that, the director, as we said, directed Parasite, which was it just last year that won Best Picture?
Yes, and I'm fairly certain that the grandfather and the other son are both in Parasite.
Oh, okay, that wouldn't
Pretty
surprise me.
sure that this is like his group of cast as well. I'm pretty sure, and maybe the daughter, the granddaughter, the girl, because she was really strong too.
She is strong. Actually, they're all strong. They just the father's kind of laughable, and the grandfathers played comedically some, but they're still strong actors, all of them, I think.
Yeah, I think the casting is really strong. I think it's really good. And I assume if I was in Korea, it would be even better because I wouldn't be doing subtitles or any of that, and I'd be able to appreciate it a little bit more. I did think that just overall, the negatives of the script are the plotting. I mean, they keep getting in these huge, grandiose security situations and then just getting out of them. You know, I'm I'm uh, um, I'm going to be taken by the viral containment company, but then I'm just going to get away in the underground garage and in a truck. And then I'm going to get in a fake truck and actually get through all of the security around this monster that's killed all these people.
It's kind of like Keystone Cops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to, the son, I'm going to find a hacker who can trace my niece's cell phone transmission, but no, that's just a really clever ploy for him to be captured by, I guess, state security or something, and he still gets away in an elevator.
And she's also using cell phones that don't belong to her because she's running out of battery. Right. She's pulling them off of dead bodies. It's like every time the thing throws a dead body down there with them, it's like, what can we salvage from this guy that he just threw down here?
Right. Which I thought was a cool idea.
Right.
I like go ahead.
I was just going to say, I had a little bit of background, and I'll read this. It's a quote. Bong Joon Ho has expressed some frustration when making this film, stating, "When you that I'm going to be down on you, but big prejudice against this type of film." And I thought, wow, that's the truth. You don't see them that often, and that's why.
Yep.
Even though there's CGI now.
Right. I did get, there was one scene I wanted to ask you about, and it kind of threw me off because, like I said, it seems from a writing structure standpoint, what he's done is, okay, the family one of the members of the family gets involved in some big situation, they get out of it. Big situation, and they get knocked unconscious, so we don't know if they're dead or not, kind of thing. But there's a scene when they first get through all the security and they get back to their snack emporium, and they're all eating ramen. And like I said earlier, it goes on forever of them sitting around just eating.
Yeah.
And then you see a little hand come up behind the father character, and the girl sit up.
Yeah.
And then we cut to the girl in her little creature snack shack.
I love that.
Why do you love that? Was that a dream? Was that not real? What was it? I don't understand.
I think that it's what she's imagining because she's so hungry and lonely. Yeah. It's almost like a reverse what's the word? Not a flashback, but it's almost like a reverse dream where you think you're seeing them in reality when actually you're seeing them in her head. That's kind of the way I read it.
So she was imagining them going back to the snack to rescue her and eat, and she wishes she was there, as opposed to they didn't really do that. They actually went hunting in the sewers for her.
Well, actually, you know what? In reality, they probably did go back and eat, but that's also what's in her mind, is that she wishes she was there with him eating because she's hungry and lonely. So, I mean, actually, both could be happening somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way I interpreted it. But I like that because it's not, I don't think it's negligent ambiguity for like, I think it's just an artistic way of conveying something from two
I did think
viewpoints.
it was intentional ambiguity of the creature itself, of how it ate, how it functioned, what it did. I mean, we finally got, okay, so it has a very slow digestive system, because it eats people who then the full body comes out of them. It vomits the whole body into the storage, the snack shack. But then later on, it's obviously pretty full because it just literally vomits about 70 body bones, just bones.
Well, yeah, at one point, it's like just bones. It's like they all digested and then it's just spitting out the bones.
Right.
The bones.
Right. Look at the bones. I did, casting wise, I did have a question for you.
Okay.
There is, in the very kind of weird part to me, in the third act, when I thought it was I was wondering what he was going to do plotting wise, the father has been finally captured again after his grandfather's death.
Yeah, because they think he has the virus. Because there's like this virus everyone's worried about when you come in contact with it. Yeah.
And I think that's some kind of maybe ode to SARS or some kind of Korean subplot sort of thing.
Probably.
But he is, this is the second time he's been captured by a medical facility, except this new big American guy comes in to tell him, hey, we want to know your story. He tells the story of, his daughter, and I think he thinks she's still alive, and blah, blah, blah. We got to go save her. She's under the bridge. And he confides to another to a translator that there isn't a virus at all. If there is, it must be inside this guy's head. So let's drill into his skull. Right?
Crazy.
So my two questions are, one, that was just a weird plot point, so I don't understand. And even though they did drill into his frontal lobe, he still escapes, gets out, and goes to rescue his daughter. Okay.
I know. It's like I guess it was a drill, but it looked very thin, like a needle. But yeah, they stuck him in the head with it.
No, it was a drill. They were drilling into his brain. Okay. But my big question is, the guy, the actor that played that guy, I have seen before in something very prominent, and I don't know what.
Oh, yes, you have.
And it's bugging the hell out of me. And I intentionally did not look it up because I wanted to ask you. So
I forgot to put it in my notes, and I shut down IMDb.
But this actor,
because we've been having some connection problems. But I will tell you, I don't know Silence of the Lambs that has a crush on Clarice.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
I was going, okay, I know this because he's very distinctive. He has a slight walleye, sort of.
Yeah, he does.
Thing. But he's great in this, looking right at the guy and talking to him and everything else. And it's like, it's really cool. But I was going, where have I seen him before? Oh my God, he's killing me.
Oh yeah, that was going to be a big, not necessarily a key. I guess it could be a casting key that I was going to mention. Is that he is from Silence of the Lambs. Yeah.
Yes. That's it. Yes. So if you're watching it and you were like me going, who is this guy? That's why.
He we've talked about this on the X-Files podcast, but a lot of the X-Files was born out of Silence of the Lambs, and those geeks in Silence of the Lambs that kind of have a crush on Clarice are very similar to the lone gunmen who have a crush on Dana Scully.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah. So I kind of get them. They're almost interchangeable to me at times, because when I see that guy, I'm like, wait, was he in Silence or was he in, the X-Files?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And you don't see him that often. That's another reason why it was hard. And it's like, how do these guys get in this Korean movie? Scott, what's his face, he's dead now, but he lived in Georgia and he played Herschel on The Walking Dead. How did he end up in this Korean movie?
I don't know. Maybe asked by the director, maybe.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that this guy, if he doesn't live in the States now, he's got like dual citizenship or something, because he's obviously making Oscar movies now too.
Well, no, Parasite was still a Korean movie. It was the first foreign movie to ever win Best Picture.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he's got a lot of clout right now. He's kind of like Guillermo is when Guillermo won for Shape of Water. Mm-hmm. But again, I think it's all part of the whole the Hollywood, at least the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, wanting to diversify more, wanting to broaden its awards a lot more, which is good. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Parasite is a good movie. It's just that it kind of missteps like this one does for me. I think this one kind of, what did you think of the ending of this? The way they ended it?
It's sad. I was like, I honestly, I don't know what to think of it, because it doesn't end the way you think it's going to end. But it still kind of ends happy, because for those of you out there not wanting to hear spoilers, turn this off. The daughter does not survive. The monster swallows both her and the boy. And then they go after, when the monster comes ashore, the family goes after it. They kill it. The father goes to pull the daughter out. He pulls her out, and she has the little boy in her arms. They're not digested, obviously. And it turns out she is dead, but the boy is still alive. And so you've got a sad ending in that they couldn't rescue the daughter in time. She lived through the entire movie hungry and scared and dies. But the boy was set as an orphan that was hanging out with some doing
his
something.
Brother.
And
it was his brother.
What's that?
It was his brother that he was hanging out with.
Right. And they were like, I don't know, surviving on the streets or whatever.
Yeah.
And so now he ends up having a new family because they adopt him in place of the daughter that got killed by the monster. I don't know. It was definitely not an American ending for sure.
No, definitely not. I thought it was an interesting choice. I did like the fact that from a writing perspective, it went back to the grandfather's speech where he's talking about when his son, meaning the father of the lead daughter, was young, the grandfather and the mother weren't there, so he lived on the streets a lot. So it kind of like, I could understand why he would pseudo adopt this kid then, kind of thing. Because the very end of the movie is them just, again, eating. They're just eating. So I need to do research and see if there is some kind of Korean thematic to a family eating together. Is that important?
I did a little research before I watched the movie, but I didn't find a lot. But then again, whenever I research foreign films, I don't get a lot of what would be something that could be cultural, because what we're reading from is like IMDb, and that's an American site, so they don't know either or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know how you find out that kind of stuff, but I think there are probably some things in this movie that are there for a reason that we don't understand. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think again, there's some, I like the ending, but I think it's some missteps in there. I like the big climax with the creature, although it doesn't make sense to have this guy that we don't even know the character's name, but he's the one that ends up pouring gasoline all over the creature. The other homeless dude that for some reason is helping them now.
He's helping them at the end. That's right. He
Uh,
gives the guy the stuff to make the Molotov cocktails with, and then he
Right.
follows them. Yeah.
But everybody else kind of has their own little thing. You know,
Uh-huh.
the one brother is the Molotov cocktail tosser.
Hmm.
He screws up the last bottle, and it's up
Before
to
Bud.
the sister, who is the archer, to shoot the creature with the fire arrow. And then dad gets
She
to
gets
stab
the
it.
fire from where he dropped it, though.
Right, right. So I loved that part, but then I'm wondering, why is this guy even helping them do that? Why they've only seen him earlier or whatever, sort of thing. But that's not really particular. The climax is filmed really well, although the music is really bad. The music in places to this movie is really,
can't
really
remember.
good. And then music in other scenes is really, really bad.
I don't really remember the music that well.
I love the melancholy
So I guess
music.
that says something.
I love the melancholy music they use a couple of times when when the grandfather's telling his big, huge, rambling story, or when the grandfather dies. That whole fight and that whole death scene is really good. But then during the climax, it's like this beboppy upscale sort of weird music. I was going, well, this doesn't match what's happening. Why are you doing this?
Well, kind of like some of the comedy that's in there. It's like, why is this here?
Yeah. But again, highly recommend the lensing and the cinematography of this movie. It's amazing.
This movie, I mean, I've got some awards. Most of them are obviously Asian, but this movie, shoot, won several Asian film festivals and was nominated for Best International Release by the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. But it is also on the list of 1,001 movies you must see before you.
Really?
Yeah.
I would
And it's
not
the
have thought
first one
that.
we've had in a while
Hmm.
that's been on there.
Although
Since
Deadly
probably Dawn
Mantis
of the
should
Dead.
be. You should watch.
No.
But,
I will say, as far as comedies, I have been meaning to do this, and I finally did. Remember, I told you we keep getting these comedies this year, and I didn't realize we had so many.
Mhm.
Bubba Hotep's one, Reanimator's one, The Raven is one, Basket Case is one. There are two more coming, and you could potentially categorize this or Battle Royale as somewhat comedic. So that's 8. I was thinking we had like 5, and there's like 8.
Right.
So there's a good bit of comedy on the list. So that's kind of a theme for season 3, a little bit.
I would think if somebody said, "Hey, recommend a Korean or an Asian movie, especially like a horror science fiction movie," what would you? I would recommend this before Battle Royale.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I
Absolutely.
think it's a very well done movie. And he's like we've said, he's got a lot of clout now with what he's done.
Snowpiercer, even though we don't particularly care for it, it gave him clout as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So he's had 3 big
Parasite.
ones in a row, sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what he does next and where he goes. Or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, it will be. It will be. Before we, the only other trivia I had is that this is in Quentin Tarantino's top 20 films between
Really?
92 and 2009. But, so
Okay.
was Battle Royale. So fuck that.
Right. Well, he has his moments.
Yeah,
Yes.
he does. I don't have a hell of a lot of keys that aren't just, obvious ones like, Godzilla or some big monster movie. But the one I did have, I watched before this podcast, and it was Prophecy, which is another movie about, chemicals being put into the water and what they can do.
Yeah.
As far as mutation.
You actually inspired me with one. I remember watching one, and you should put this on your list eventually.
Okay.
But it's just called Ticks. And it actually does have some good scares in it, but it's basically this guy is trying to uh, grow marijuana up in the woods, and he is using these special chemicals on it to make the pot more potent, and it ends up spilling into the environment naturally and creating ticks that are like the size of chihuahuas. They're like this big tick.
Do they have the little legs?
Oh yeah, and they'll crawl really fast
Uh,
and like
they don't
suck your
crawl
blood
fast
dry.
in real life, though.
Oh, they crawl fast in this movie, and they suck your blood dry and stuff, kind of thing. But that eco terror, we talked about it. I think during Deadly Mantis, but frogs.
Right.
That whole era of the late 70s, early 80s, where eco-terrorism came about. And I think it's interesting, this kind of paid homage back to that sort of feel.
It does. And for some reason, I watched Prophecy because it was connected key-wise. And that just turned me into some other weird movies I had forgotten existed. Obviously, The Incredible Melting Man. But now I'm like on this binge to find some of these movies I remember that I may have not seen. I've seen Shockwaves, but that would be another one. I read that Rick Baker did the effects on Squirm, and I don't remember that movie very well. So I'm like, I kind of want to see that again.
Okay.
And Willard. I don't think I ever saw Willard.
Oh, Willard and Ben both are pretty, well, I don't remember. I can't say if they're good or not. I remember them. I remember them being
Ernest
scary at the
Borgnine's
time.
in one, so that's enough right there for me to watch it.
But it's basically a bunch of rats, and they protect Willard.
And
but
Michael Jackson did the song for the second one.
This has all of the monster, tropes in it without the empathetic trope, which I think happens in a lot of these eco terrorist sort of movies, is we don't then have a sympathy for the creatures because it's basically a vengeance movie. They're just doing what they do because they were mutated and they're there and they do it,
Yeah, there's no sympathy for this monster.
Yeah.
I mean,
and again, something that
when
might
they
have been
set it on fire.
interesting to play up, but they didn't. So, there is, and I couldn't think of a movie that does this, but I know there are, but this whole resilient family that's dysfunctional having to come together to work to fight the villain. You know what I mean?
It's like a sub-trope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do know what you mean, but I can't think of one either. Where they're very dysfunctional, but when it comes to like peril, they all unite and play off each other very well.
Yeah, and usually because of one of their own is in danger. That sort of thing. So no, even though I hate you in real life and I haven't spoken to you in 3 years, we're both going to go bust out the granddaughter or whatever, or save them.
Yeah.
So that trope is in there. I had a key of just, Army of Darkness, just because of that. You're right in the middle of a good, scary movie, but then they have something really goofy that happens or something that doesn't make sense. It's kind of comedic.
That's a very good example. You could use the Evil Dead in there too, the second one, because that movie almost played entirely like a comedy to me, and I didn't like it as much.
Agreed.
It's like let's remake a horror movie into a comedy and just do the exact same thing and recast everybody but Bruce. I was like, why did they do that?
Yeah, and the only time I really liked that is when it worked, like Cabin in the Woods. The humor in Cabin in the Woods works for me. It's very Joss Whedon, which I like a lot anyway, but it's the character is like, oh, he has a couple of humorous characters that are quippy, that are funny. And so they'll naturally, in scary situations, say something funny. The stoner dude in Cabin in the Woods, or the two guys that are in the lab. They say humorous things because their characters are humorous. They're not just in a goofy situation, which happens in this. If the son, we won't say son, if the the lead, the father, the
Right.
blonde, had been a funny character, it might have worked. And maybe he is in
He's
Korean
slacker.
cinema, but he's not. He seems like a total loser.
He's a slapper, a slacker. He's always wearing sweatpants. He's like one of those guys you picture plays video games all day and does nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, his father, the grandfather in it, asks him to do something and he screws it up, you know.
Oh yeah. And what about those weird squids they were cooking? They were flat.
Yeah, the flat squids. Yep.
Gross. Yeah, they eat a lot of gross shit in this movie. There's something in a can. I don't know what it was, and I really don't want to know what it was.
Well, if you go to Asia, there are some unique things that they eat. It's very, it is that way.
Yeah, yeah. I keep telling Dennis we need to.
I thought it was curious that you really only see one character smoke in this, which is another big trope in Asian cinema, which is there because there are a lot of smokers there.
There are. Well, I mean, at least in Japan. I don't know about Korea, but I would think so.
Yeah. But I think people could appreciate this movie even if they just turned off the sound and watched this movie because it looks so incredible in places.
Yeah, it does. It does.
I mean, I keep talking about the lensing, but you know, like the grandfather on his side, it's raining and it's this great side profile close up and you're actually seeing the water come off his nose and you're seeing the lighting in it because everything in the background is so out of focus. It just looks so dynamic, just great. I mean, he's definitely got a knack for the direction. I just think maybe somebody else needs to write his scripts for him.
Maybe so. But okay, well, I guess we can close it at that. Obviously, most of the other keys would have to do with either eco horror or big monsters. Overall, I love this movie. I'm glad it's on 1001 movies you must see before you die. I knew when I was watching it again for the third time. The second time I saw this was with Steve Rowe, believe it or not. He had come down here to visit us in like it was around 2008, I think. And I showed this to him because I knew he would love this movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I knew as I was watching it the other night, I was like, oh wow, this is really pretty. David's gonna like some of this stuff. Because I was like, I've always worried when I have a foreign movie, especially after that fiasco with Battle Royale. But anyway,
there you go.
I keep saying that because I know it's just making Joe mad.
It's just making Joe mad. Yeah. You're just making him madder. But
all right. Well, we would like to thank everybody for joining us this week. You know what movie number is this? This is actually number 32 of the season. Only 8 more to go.
Counting down to the end of season 3.
Yeah. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, like,
please,
hit that bell, rate us, review us, tell your friends about us. Check out our Patreon page. We've also got some free stuff there as well as subscribing stuff. And other than that, I guess we're out of here this week.
All right. See you next week.
All right. Take care, David.
Bye.
Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.